You live in a rental, and how is it that you're going to soundproof the wall when you don't even own it? How are you going to add an extra layer of drywall, something onto the wall to stop those sound waves so you can't hear your noisy neighbors anymore? Well, there's a lot of information online, and a lot of them are telling you to just add some acoustic foam onto the wall and that will solve all of your problem. Well, the thing is, acoustic foam is a sound absorber. It's not a sound blocker. So all you'll do with this, all this will do is reduce the echo in the room that you're in. It's not going to stop the sound waves from your noisy neighbors from coming into your unit. So acoustic foam is not really the way to go. But there are a few things that you can do, even if you're renting, that can reduce some of the noise. Because let's face it, a lot of the times, a lot of renters also not only wants to stop hearing their noisy neighbors, but also late at night, if you're doing some extracurricular activities, you might not want your neighbor to also hear you. So it kind of works both ways also when you want to soundproof a wall in a rental. Now, the first thing that you can do, yes, you can add mass on a wall in a rental, but it all has to be temporary because you have to take it down when you leave. Now, one thing that you can do that can add mass onto the wall that will actually block some of the sound waves from entering or exiting the room is a bookshelf. You can have a big unit like this. I'll move the camera so you can see a little bit better. So this is one way to block some noise from entering or exiting the room. A bookshelf or a unit that covers the entire wall. The trick is to have it from ceiling to floor, from side to side. You have to cover the entire wall, because if only half of the wall is covered, it's not going to be effective. It's not going to be effective enough that you're actually going to be satisfied. So one thing is cover the entire wall and then add books onto the shelf. It's going to be a great barrier. And if you want to go even further, one other thing that you can do is these sheets of wood or fake wood aren't really great at blocking sound. So you'll have this in between the wall and in between the unit. But what you can add between the wall and this sheet of fake wood is mass-loaded vinyl. Now, mass-loaded vinyl it comes in a roll. It's very heavy, it's thin, it's a rubber type material, and it works good at blocking noise and also absorbing some noise, but really it's more of a noise blocker. And what you can do is attach it directly behind this sheet of wood. So there's an extra barrier between the other room and the room that you're in. Now, after that's done, you fill it up with books or with decorations, but having that mass-loaded vinyl in between is basically the key to stopping the most noise. And what's nice is if you do have a bookshelf and you kind of build it, you can just dismantle it and bring it to your next dwelling afterwards, so it's not a total loss. But if you don't want to use mass-loaded vinyl and you want something a lot cheaper, what you can do is you can hang a heavy blanket, heavy drapes, or even moving blanket, something that is heavy, thick, and that will block the most noise. Now, this is good at absorbing noise, but also it does block a little bit of noise. So if you have a bookshelf along the wall, you can hang heavy blankets or a heavy sound blocking or sound deadening drape across. So now you have this wall, you have an air gap, and then you have this over it. And that will help block a little bit more noise, but it's not going to work miracles, because it is more of a sound deadener, sound absorber than a sound blocker, because it's not a thick, hard material that actually stops and makes sound waves bounce off of it. So that's one thing to think about. Now, if you don't want to be building a unit, you don't want anything to do with that, that's understandable. It's a big project. You can still use heavy drapes, but the thing is, you'll have to hang them onto the ceiling from floor to ceiling from wall to wall, heavy drapes. You can even use the types of drapes that they use in movie sets. Those soak up noise, and also that actually works better to absorb the noise that you're making in the room versus blocking the noise from the other room coming in. Now, another thing that you can do to stop the noise or help stop noise from coming into your unit from your neighbor is look at your electrical outlet. Before doing that, go to your breaker panel and shut off the electricity just in case something happens. Then go ahead and take the faceplate off, look inside, and most of the time you'll see a big gap between the electrical outlet box and the wall. And in those electrical outlet boxes, there's a lot of holes in them. And a lot of the times between apartment units, there is no insulation. It's just the way that a lot of people build apartments. They go very cheap, and there's not much soundproofing in between the walls, which is sad, but it's reality. So what you can do is those electrical outlets, earlier I was talking about make sure to seal the entire wall. Well, the electrical outlet box, that's a hole essentially in the wall. And on the other side of the wall, there's usually another electrical outlet box. There's going to be noise that is transferred from room to room through those holes, through those boxes. One thing that you can do is you can grab your acoustical sealant. This type of sealant, it's like caulking, but it doesn't crack over time. It stays rubbery, and seal in between the box and the drywall to create that seal. But one thing that works a little bit better is a noise reduction faceplate, which already has some type of putty in behind the faceplate, so that will help block the noise coming through. So that's pretty well what you can do that works relatively well to drown out some noise from your noisy apartment neighbors. If you are trying to soundproof an exterior wall that has also a window, that can also create a challenge in a rental because you can't really go ahead and change the window. But one thing that you can buy is acoustic window inserts. Here is one that I tested a while back, and it actually worked a lot better than I thought it would. I'll have a link in the description below of that video, and also all the materials I talk about in this video, I'll have links so you can go easily purchase them. The window insert in that video was from a company called Indo Windows, and it did work very well. It is custom made. It does cost quite a lot of money. It is between $300 to upwards of over $1,000 depending on the size of the window. So that's one thing to consider. If you have an odd shaped window, it might be difficult to bring it to your next dwelling because then it won't fit any windows. But if you do have a standard size window, a smaller window, that it won't cost that much and you can bring it to your next unit or your home, then that's one thing to consider. Also, you can even sell it to the next renter if it is a lot of noise coming from outside, road noise. But one thing that I did notice in my test is that if you have a single pane window, you'll notice if you just go to the window and tap it with your nail, if it's just, you can tell there's just one sheet of glass, the window insert works very well. However, if you have a double or triple pane window, if you tap on the window, it's quite hard, it doesn't make any echo or anything, then it's not going to work as well because it's not going to block. There's already a lot of noise being blocked by the window itself, and the insert is not going to make a huge difference. So that's one thing to watch out for. And if the window insert is not what you're looking for, then you can go ahead and buy some sound deadening curtains. Sound deadening curtains is good for deadening the noise inside your unit, but it does help a little bit to block some of the noise coming from outside. It's not a miracle, but it does help a little bit. These are also called blackout curtains. It helps block out the sun because it's 3-layered. There's 2 layers, and then in the middle, there's a black felt. So it blocks out the sun a lot better than it blocks out noise, but it does help a little bit in blocking noise. Now, if the window is where most of the noise is coming through and a window insert is not really going to work because it's not in budget, and a curtain is just not going to work because it doesn't block that much noise, then you can go ahead and build a DIY window plug. I actually built one of these, and it's not that expensive to build, and it's not that complicated either, and it does work very well at blocking noise. This is basically the closest way to completely blocking out the window with drywall, because I use drywall, insulation, and also some mass-loaded vinyl inside this window plug, and it works quite well at blocking noise. And this is something that you can do in an apartment because it doesn't cause any damage and you don't have to make any alterations, and you can just bring it with you or throw it away once you're done. So if you are working night shifts and you have to sleep during the day, this would be definitely the way to go if you have a lot of noise coming from the window. Just build a DIY window plug and you'll be good to go. If you do want to learn how to build that DIY window plug, video right there. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, assuming that you subscribed.